Tosfos says that if it's a cesarean delivery, there is no pidyon haben, because the Torah says the baby has to be a pet rechem. The baby pushed its way out. Now, the Yotzei Dofen, as it's called in Mishnah, Yotzei Dofen doesn't only mean when they cut over here and they took the baby out here. Even if the baby comes out the normal way, let's say sometimes there's a difficult delivery, so the doctor cuts on both sides, then he puts his hands in and he takes the baby out. That's also called Yotzei Dofen. Yotzei Dofen means whenever the baby didn't push itself out naturally through the rechem, that's considered Yotzei Dofen. So there is a discussion in the poskim from the early 1900s, what about a forceps baby? So they all point out the doctor doesn't put the forceps inside the rechem and pull out the baby. The doctor only starts using the forceps after the head already came out. Once it's Yotzei Rosho, the doctor will use the forceps to straighten out the baby, that it should be able to slide out properly. So that's not really an issue. But this sometimes does happen. The doctor will cut on either side and put his hands in, take out the baby. That has a status of Yotzei Dofen. There was a prominent Rav in America years ago who was of the opinion that if you had induced labor, when they inject the chemical into the mother's blood system in order to induce labor, that has the status of Yotzei Dofen. So that opinion has not been accepted. Rabbi Henkin was of the opinion like that. He felt that that's considered Yotzei Dofen. There's another din of Yotzei Dofen. If a baby boy is born on Shabbos, then the Mila Bismano is Deicha Shabbos. Then the bris takes place next Shabbos. If the baby was born in the middle of the week, and you had to postpone the bris, so you're not permitted to perform the bris on Shabbos if that's the earliest time you can have it. So if there's a Yotzei Dofen on Shabbos, let's say there's a cesarean delivery on Shabbos, then the bris Mila is not Deicha Shabbos. It's a machlokes in the Gemara, the Masechah Shabbos, and we pass to Misafek, the Yotzei Dofen is not Deicha Shabbos. So Rav Henkin was of the opinion that if you had induced labor, that's considered Yotzei Dofen, and the bris is not Deicha Shabbos, and there wouldn't be a pidyon haben. That opinion has not been accepted. We assume that when you inject the chemical into the blood system, then the natural forces take over, and the baby pushes its way out, so that's considered a normal birth. That's not considered a Yotzei Dofen. If there was first a cesarean delivery, and then later on the next child is born normally, so the first child doesn't have a pidyon haben. What about the second child? What if the next baby is a boy, and that was a normal delivery? So that's a dispute in the Mishnah, and the accepted halacha is that there is no pidyon haben. I was told that a lot of people in Eretz Yisrael have the practice that they perform a pidyon haben on such a situation. That's against the halacha. That's a bracha levatala. We don't accept that opinion. The accepted halacha is that if the first child was cesarean delivery, even though the next one is a boy, and it's born normally, naturally, there is no pidyon haben. What happens if the first child was a nefel, let's say a miscarriage, so then the second child is not pet rechem, so there's no pidyon haben. What happens if the first child was a nefel and a Yotzei Dofen? It's a nefel and a Yotzei Dofen. So Tzvi Pesach Frank, who was a big Pesach in Eretz Yisrael years ago, he was a dayan under Rav Kook, when Rav Kook was the chief rabbi. So he has a whole fantastic tshuva. He shows, based on the sugi in the Gemara, in the 8th perek, that if the first child was a nefel and a Yotzei Dofen, then the next child should have a pidyon haben. And even if you don't think that his pilpul is right, he said, he thinks he's right. He says at least he should do a pidyon haben b'li bracha, but he thinks he really should. So it's interesting because he was from the Rabbanut, and the Eid HaCharedis has to fight against the Rabbanut all the time. So that's why one of the Rabbanut from the Eid HaCharedis published a tshuva disagreeing with him, fluky tshuva. Tzvi Pesach Frank's tshuva is very strong tshuva, and the one who disagreed, he disagreed because whatever the Rabbanut says, you have to say fakir. It's a mitzvah to say fakir. So every so often you have that. Let's say a woman has a pregnancy that's not viable, so sometimes they'll perform an abortion by using a vacuum, by suctioning out the baby. So the baby didn't push its way out. So that's a nefel Yotzei Dofen. That's not so uncommon. It's not a child that comes up once in 100 years. It comes up pretty often. The first child was a nefel Yotzei Dofen. It was suctioned out by vacuum. So Tzvi Pesach Frank thinks in such a situation, you are obligated to perform pidyon haben. Whenever there's a suffix pidyon haben, we don't treat it like a suffix mitzvah, suffix deraisa l'chumra. You have a suffix if you have to like tefillin, a suffix if you have to shake the lulav. So whenever there's a suffix on a biblical mitzvah, you go l'chumra. And suffix pidyon haben, the Mishnayos repeat Mishnah after Mishnah after Mishnah. Whenever there's any slight suffix, we treat it like a suffix moment. Whenever there's a suffix, if I owe you money, even all kinds of sveikas, you don't pay. Even though you say a bracha when you perform pidyon haben. So I would have thought that it's a suffix mitzvah, the suffix mitzvah deraisa l'chumra. So the Mishnah say beferish not so. Whenever there's any suffix, so you don't perform the pidyon haben. But this case, when it's a yotze doif and nefel, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank says it's not really a suffix. He holds that you're really chayv to do the pidyon haben. He said if you're a little bit, if you're mahases, to do it without a bracha, but really you should do a pidyon haben in such a situation. Every so often you have a woman who converts, and she's pregnant at the time that she converts, and this is the first child that she had. If a woman had a child before she converted, and then she converts, and now the first child she has after converting is a baby boy, that's a machlokes in the Mishnah. We paskin, there's no pidyon haben. That's not called peterech. But what if the non-Jewish woman is pregnant with the first child, and then she converts while she's pregnant? So the Gemara says when the baby is born, it's Jewish. So the Mishnah says beferish on such a baby that you are chayv in pidyon haben. Not such an unusual case. It comes up also once a year, every year, such a case. A non-Jewish woman who is pregnant will convert, and you have to. If it's a baby boy, the din requires that you have to do pidyon haben. When exactly do you perform the pidyon haben? So there is a discussion in the Mishnah. Do you do the pidyon haben? Pasuk says after 30 days. What does it mean after 30 days? On the 30th day or on the 31st day? So we paskin halacha l'maaseh, the pidyon haben is done on the 31st day. There is a question in Rishonim, the average amount of time between the moiled halvana, one moiled and the other moiled halvana, it's not always the same. It depends on different things, how close the earth is to the sun. So the average amount of time between one moiled halvana and the other, that's why we always calculate based on the average, even though it's not always accurate, is 29 days, 12 hours, and Tavshin Tzadi Gimel Chalokim, 793 Chalokim. So there is an opinion in Rishonim which is not really accepted, that it doesn't really matter 30 days, 31 days. What really matters is you have to wait 20. You have to figure out when exactly was the baby born, and then you can begin to perform the pidyon haben 29 full days later, 12 hours plus the 793 chalok. So there is such an opinion, but Mikra Din we don't really pass like that. So because with that opinion, that's why we have the following practice. The Gemara says in Kiddushin that the pidyon haben is not a mitzvah saseh shehazman grama. Pidyon haben can be done by yom or balayla. And so the Gemara says, so how come women are exempt from performing pidyon haben? It's this mitzvah saseh shehazman grama. The Gemara learns that from a pasuk. That the mother is not obligated to perform pidyon haben, only the father. So nonetheless, we have a minig in Shulchan Aruch that the pidyon haben is always done by yom. You always do pidyon haben in the daytime. Why? Why do you wait till the daytime? Why don't you say Zrizim Magdim Ela Mitzvahs when you enter into the 31st day? The baby would have been born 4 weeks ago, and tonight is the beginning of the 31st day. Why don't you say Zrizim Magdim Ela Mitzvahs? Do the mitzvah pidyon haben immediately. So they give different explanations of Shulchan Aruch. So the Shach, in his commentary on the side of the page in the big Shulchan Aruch, says